The Martin and Mary L. Boyer Foundation generously supports programming on WTTW in loving memory of Alan I. Boyer. WTTW programming originates from the Renee Crown Public Media Center.
Watch one of the best-selling recording artists of all time for her unforgettable concert, filmed at London's Wembley Stadium. Watch Tina Turner one last time.
Friday at 8 on WTTW.
Hi, Chicago. I'm Sam, and you're watching WTTW.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the generosity of the Lloyd A. Fry Foundation.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Paris Schutz is on assignment. On the show tonight,
we have a responsibility to make right what was wrong.
The mayor and Chicago's police department unveil new guidelines for search warrants. But critics say the changes still fall short.
We're announcing a major step forward.
With the rollout of the Johnson & Johnson shot, every American could be eligible for a vaccination by May. How effective is the latest vaccine?
Today is 259 straight days in Lake Michigan.
And one Chicagoan is breaking through the pandemic blues and raising money for local music venues by plunging into the icy waters of Lake Michigan. And don't believe the hype. The periodical cicadas you've been hearing will appear in Illinois this spring are not headed for Chicagoland. But first, some of today's top stories. Illinois Democrats are set to choose a new party chair this evening. At a virtual meeting that started just an hour ago, the Democratic Central State Committee is considering a replacement for outgoing chair Michael Madigan. Madigan had served in the position since 1998, but has recently stepped down from all of his powerful positions, including representing his district and, of course, as Speaker of the Illinois House. The two finalists are Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who represents the 2nd District, and Alderwoman Michelle Harris of Chicago's 8th Ward. The election of either as a state party chair will mark the first time a person of color or woman has ever held the position. We'll have the results of tonight's meeting on our website. Illinois public health officials report more than 2,100 new cases of the coronavirus and 44 additional deaths. The state's total case count is now more than 1,191,000, while the death toll stands at 20,626. The state's 7-day rolling average for vaccines administered is 84,200 per day. Illinois is encouraging the 2.9 million people who have received the vaccine to use the CDC's V-Safe After Vaccination Health Checker. Illinois health officials say by enrolling, you'll receive a text when it's time for your second dose. It also allows users to communicate with the CDC about any potential side effects. The Archdiocese of Chicago is standing with the Vatican and telling the Catholic faithful that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is morally permissible. Now, this is a contrast to the Archdioceses of St. Louis and New Orleans, where officials say that because the vaccine was produced using a cell line derived from an aborted fetus, that particular vaccine is morally compromised, advising parishioners to opt for the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. But Chicago Cardinal Blaise Cupich, who is fully vaccinated along with Pope Francis, advised followers to register for the vaccine as soon as possible. Mercy Hospital may have a buyer who would be able to keep the near South Side Hospital open. Mercy says Insight Chicago, a nonprofit affiliated with a Michigan-based organization, would continue to operate a full-service acute care hospital in the community. The organization filed a change of ownership application with the state of Illinois today and will negotiate a purchase agreement over the next few weeks. The company says until that deal is done, current owner Trinity's plans to close by May 31st remain in effect. And attorneys for activist and priest Father Michael Pfleger deny new allegations from now a third man accusing Pfleger of sexually assaulting him. Chicago attorney Eugene Hollander says the man was a teenager in the 70s when Pfleger regularly gave him marijuana and alcohol and took him to local jazz clubs. The man, who is not suing but is cooperating with the Archdiocese, says Pfleger sexually assaulted him in the priest's bedroom when he was 18 years old. In response, Pfleger's attorneys say he remembers the alleged victim and that the assault never happened. Pfleger's lawyers also accuse attorney Hollander of dishonesty in trying to help clients get money from the Archdiocese. For the second time since she became mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot is changing the policy for when and how city police can execute search warrants. It comes as the Chicago Police Department is under scrutiny for botched raids, including one that led to a lawsuit from Anjanette Young. Amanda Vinicky joins us now with more. Amanda.
Brandis, once viewed, it is hard to erase that horrifying video of Anjanette Young home alone and changing, so naked, when Chicago police burst into her home. An officer did eventually put a blanket over her, but for a long stretch, she was left naked while restrained in handcuffs. When you see body camera video later on in this story, you will see a black box that is her digitally covered up by the CPD when it made the footage public following investigative reporting by WBBM. A traumatic experience for Young, especially given police were in the wrong home. Mayor Lightfoot promised change.
Today, CPD makes good on its promise to change how search warrants are served in Chicago. It's always the right time to do the right thing. We should always be evolving to improve our policies, training, and accountability.
Now, new standards and procedures announced by CPD Chief David Brown and Mayor Lightfoot require higher-ranking command staff to sign off on requests for a warrant before it is brought to a state's attorney and judge. Considerations and plans must be made if vulnerable people, like children, may be present. Then when a search is actually executed, a female officer must be present. Police must wear and activate body cameras. A lieutenant must also be on site and responsible for officers' behavior. The plan up front spells out what type of behavior is expected.
All department members will treat all persons with courtesy and dignity, which is inherently due every person, and will act, speak, and conduct themselves in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner. And then it goes on from there. This is common sense, but this is now enshrined in the actual policy.
The new policy does still allow for so-called no-knock warrants, but in limited circumstances, like when a life is in danger.
A Fourth Amendment allows for that to happen, but only in certain circumstances where there's an establishment that evidence of a crime will be found in a particular location. No matter how you slice it, it is an intrusion. And so making sure that we get the facts and the details right and that there is ownership at the highest levels of CPD is critically important.
And if police do get things wrong, if there's bad evidence or something, a situation like what happened to Young, a wrong raid, that has to be investigated.
That's another safeguard that I believe personally is critically important, that the judge be notified that there was a wrong raid.
Asked whether he's concerned that these standards could police in peril in potentially dangerous situations, here's how Brown responded.
The real question you're asking is if treating someone with respect gets in the way of doing our job. And the answer is no. So following these policies and procedures with an emphasis on everyone deserves a measure of respect actually enhances our ability to do our job and creates an environment of trust in the community, which again is a force multiplier in our being effective at reducing crime.
In an email, the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police said that he had plenty of reaction to these new standards, but he did not immediately follow up in an email with specifics. The proposal did get the nod from Alderman Chris Taliaferro. He is head of the City Council's Public Safety Committee and also a former cop.
So these reforms that the mayor's announcing today will help bring about true accountability, true responsibility.
But in a statement, Young's attorney says the proposal falls quote, woefully short of the types of reforms that the citizens of Chicago require to feel secure in their homes from these violent and often wrongful raids. If the mayor is truly serious about reform, the statement says she'll get behind an ordinance announced last week by a handful of Black aldermen that also has the backing of progressive groups like Black Lives Matter and United Working Families. And that plan does ban no-knock warrants, also expressly prohibits officers from pointing guns toward children. And there is time for Young, the coalition of groups she's aligned with, and really anybody else who wants to have their opinion made known about this to do so. Chicago is going to have a 15-day public comment period before these standards go into effect.
It's a short period of time, 15 days. And so encourage your friends. Let's use social media not just for passing around jokes and having a good time. Let's use this to improve our city.
Depending on what sort of feedback the city does get, the policy could still be modified before it is put into action. But the mayor says that it is urgent that these changes are made. And so she is hopeful that the plan is going to take effect by the end of the month. I should note here that neither Brown nor Lightfoot were in their respective positions when that 2019 botched raid on Anjanette Young's home took place. Nonetheless, Young and her supporters say that what happened there was not an anomaly. Brandis, back to you.
Amanda, thank you. And up next, understanding expanded vaccine access. President Joe Biden announces that Merck will help manufacture the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which means production could be months ahead of schedule. Take a look.
This country will have enough vaccine supply, I'll say it again, for every adult in America by the end of May.
And here to talk about the new vaccine and what it means is Dr. Robert Murphy, director of the Institute for Global Health at Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine. Welcome back, Dr. Murphy. So if there are enough vaccines for every adult available by the end of May, could that mean we could have sort of a normal summer, people at concerts and baseball games?
No. Sorry to disappoint you. That having enough vaccines ready doesn't mean they're in the arm of the people. And remember, most of the vaccines, except for the J&J vaccine, require 2 doses, 3 or 4 weeks apart, depending on which one. So if they all come out in May, which is fantastic and ahead of schedule, it's going to take 2 or 3 months to administer those. And during that time, we're going to see how many people are going to remain being hesitant in taking the vaccine. So we're going to go from not having enough vaccine to having too much vaccine and not enough people.
So, of course, should people still continue to mask up even after being vaccinated? And at what point is enough of the population vaccinated that maybe we start to loosen the restrictions on masks?
Yeah, well, the CDC was supposedly coming out today with some guidelines to answer this question. I think what will happen is it's going to go in stages. We haven't controlled the pandemic. We're still having, 1,000 deaths a day and, many cases per day. So it's not controlled yet. So what will happen, though, is now there's going to be a big enough pool of people who've taken either the Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine or the 2 Moderna or Pfizer vaccines. So in other words, they're immunized. So I think what you'll see is recommendations that say groups that have everybody's been vaccinated can get together. So it's going to be, I call it VO, vaccinated only. There's going to be vaccinated only events and gatherings that will come first before we reach herd immunity. Now the question is, what proportion of the population has to be vaccinated before we get to herd immunity? We don't know the answer. Could be anywhere from 60 to 90%. It's probably on the higher side, maybe 80 to 90%, because this thing is so contagious. And now we have the new B117 variant, which is even more contagious. So when we get to that point, that's when things are really going to be able to open up.
And with more vaccines, on the way, should Chicago continue with its phased rollout, or should it open up the vaccine to a lot more people a lot more quickly?
Yeah, no, it is going to open up to more people and quickly, because the amount of vaccine that's able to be distributed is increasing really almost by the day. We're not quite there yet. So if they opened up to everybody now, you would still have some of these essential people and people at risk that are going to be fighting in line to get the vaccine. But we're almost there. So that's really the good news. So it'll happen. It's going to happen a lot sooner. Like we just said, if all these vaccines are manufactured by May, yeah, it's definitely going to be wide open.
So keep holding on. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was approved for emergency use, as you've said. It's already started going into some arms this week. But a few differences between that one and, of course, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. The Pfizer and Moderna are about 95% effective, but the Johnson & Johnson, it's a little bit more nuanced, only 72% effective in the U.S. So should people be concerned about that difference?
No, there's a couple reasons. One thing, you look at that Johnson & Johnson study, which involved 44,000 people. What did they find? Nobody went to the hospital, even if they got sick, infected. Nobody died. So, the metric, the endpoint has changed. Now, if you had put that vaccine in the same development time frame as Moderna and Pfizer, who knows what the answer would be? It might have been the same. We don't know. We can't say one of those is better than the other because of the timing of the clinical studies. I would say whatever you can get, take.
And if it's just one shot, as the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is, versus two, could that potentially build herd immunity faster because you don't have that 3-4 week time between doses?
Well, yes, it's going to obviously help by 1 month, because the other ones take 3 or 4 weeks before you get the second shot, and a lot of people are late. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to open up vaccinating people who are homebound, because first of all, it's a very safe vaccine. It's a technology we've had around for a long time, and it doesn't have, or they haven't reported anyway yet, the kind of tough, serious side effects of the other two vaccine products. So it's going to be much easier for a nurse, say, to go to a home, somebody who's an invalid or they just can't get out, give the vaccine. They don't even, it's going to be very simple. So because of those reasons, I think we can reach herd immunity a little faster.
Of course, the virus continues to mutate, and some of the variants that we are learning about may be resistant, but they are certainly more contagious. Will people need to get booster shots from the same vaccine manufacturer that they originally received?
Well, it's really two questions there. So will they need to get booster shots? I think they are going to have to get booster shots, and they're re-engineering the vaccines as we speak to be protective against those particular variants. It's like a new virus almost. It's like, every year you don't get the same flu vaccine. It's geared for the flu, the influenza virus that's coming in the next wave. So if when that time comes where the virus is so different, we need a booster, it could be anything. It does not have to match up with the vaccine you had originally.
The University of Illinois received emergency use authorization for its spit test. How reliable is this new test? It is less invasive, but how reliable is it compared to the more invasive nasal swab?
Okay, so you're talking really about two different things. One is the specimen and one is the test. The test is a PCR test that they developed down there in Champaign-Urbana at the University of Illinois. And that's a polymerase chain reaction test. It's fantastic. I mean, it's like high 90s sensitivity and 100% specific, and so forth. The saliva is just a sample. So, you could do a nasal swab on that assay. You can do a saliva swab. They wanted to do saliva because they thought it would be easier because they're testing all the students, twice a week down on campus there to keep the school open. So it's the sample is not, the saliva is a better test. Saliva is just an easier sample for some people to give. The test is the test. You could send any kind of sample there.
Okay, so just as reliable, it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's absolutely.
All right, our thanks to Dr. Robert Murphy for joining us as always. For more than 260 straight days, Dan O'Connor has shocked his senses by leaping into Lake Michigan. What started as a way to break up the days during the pandemic is now an opportunity for the Lincoln Square resident to help the city's music scene. Chicago Tonight's Evan Garcia went to Fullerton Beach last week to meet a man who calls himself the Great Lake Jumper.
It's a chilly morning in late February, and Dan O'Connor is planning his exit strategy.
I probably spent about 20-25 minutes with a shovel and mostly a hammer, just chipping away at the ice so I had a clear path back out to the ladder.
Dan is doing something most people find unthinkable this time of year, plunging into Lake Michigan. The water temperature today? 33 degrees. Dan says this is the 259th straight day he's jumped in the lake. He says it all began with a headache back in June.
I started doing it because I was hungover the first day, and it felt so good to be, out in the lake, kind of wash away all the stuff that was happening in America at the time, between the pandemic and the politics and the protests and the unrest, and it just felt like a good, clean start to the day.
Dubbing himself the Great Lake Jumper, Dan has gained an incredulous audience online while filming his jumps from various lakefront locations. Dan says his daily diving routine helps him cope with the disappearance of live music during the pandemic. Before COVID-19 shut down Chicago's live music scene, Dan sold hand-stenciled custom clothing from music venues like this one, Metro in the Wrigleyville neighborhood.
Doing this for about close to 15 years. For the first, say 6-8 years, I was doing it for friends and family at festivals. I'd pick, hey, there's 100 bands on the festival. I'd pick my favorite 10. I'd, cut a stencil and spray paint 10 shirts, give them out to, wear one and give them 9 out to my friends and family.
While he works full-time as a bus driver in the north suburbs, selling homemade shirts has been a successful side hustle for Dan. A few years ago, he was invited to sell his clothing at Lollapalooza's official pop-up store.
How you feeling? Feeling great. Toes are a little cold, but...
With in-person concerts still on hold, Dan is trying to raise money for Civil, an organization formed by 14 of the city's independent music venues.
Kind of directing people, hey, if you like this content online of me jumping in the lake for, 259 days today in a row, then, donate to there.
Sometimes local acts, like Cielito Lindo, accompany him with music.
Just trying to get, a different genres, different instruments of people to show the breadth of Chicago.
And a warning to any daring divers looking to follow Dan's lead. Plunging into cold water can cause cold shock or involuntary gasping that can lead to drowning, according to the National Weather Service. A life jacket is recommended.
I have some serene moments, and I think also part of it is diving in and that shock to the body that, you get this kind of full body buzz, that those endorphins released.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Evan Garcia.
Dan says he plans to keep jumping in Lake Michigan every day for at least another 101 days. That'll bring him to a full year. And in case you're wondering, today's lake water temperature in Chicago, it's about 34 degrees. Coming up, why a biblical swarm is passing over Chicago this year. But first, a look at the weather. Cicadas are set to emerge from the ground and descend on Illinois this spring. But if you're in the Chicago area, you can breathe a little easier. WTTW news reporter, digital reporter Patty Wetley is here to explain why. So Patty, what kind of cicadas are these and where will they appear this year?
Yeah, so there's 2 kinds of cicadas. There's the annual cicada, which is also known as the dog day cicada, that everybody's used to showing up in July through like September. We kind of think of them as being like the harbingers of, the end of summer is about here, those are not what we're talking about. The swarms are periodical cicadas. And huge groups of them called broods sort of lurk underground for like 17 years, and then they all emerge at once in these mass groups and live only for a few weeks after that. So it's like a long buildup for a short life. But there's going to be a brood emerging in just a handful of Illinois counties in 2021. They usually show up around May on the eastern edge of the state bordering Indiana, which Indiana is actually bearing the brunt of this 2021 emergence. But Chicago is not going to see its 17-year brood until 2024.
And Patty, when did these last appear in Chicago?
So we did last see them in 2007, and I believe we still have some photographic evidence of that emergence. People in the suburbs tend to get larger infestations than in the city, where the concrete and the overall general disturbance makes them less present. But, we've got 3 years to prepare for it.
All right, mark our calendars for 2024. Yes. Patty Wetley, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brandis.
And you can read Patty's full story on our website. It's all at WTTW.com/news. And that's our show for this Wednesday night, abbreviated to bring you special pledge programming. And don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night live at 7. Vaccines could be available for all soon, but will hesitancy undermine efforts in communities hardest hit by the virus? And mass vaccinations, a battle over garbage sorting, and helping monarchs. We visit West Chicago for our In Your Neighborhood series. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning for this program is brought to you by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, dedicated to preserving the dignity and